Welcome to episode 35 of the Silver Savage podcast. This podcast is brought to you by Masada Tactical. Check out masadatactical.com for information about classes, seminar, and the online store for shirts, hats, and more gear. As you all know, Masada Tactical, a parent company, is a training organization specializing in teaching Israeli-based tactics, from firearms to self-defense. That naturally leads many to ask Steve and I about how to get into self-defense or martial arts training to begin with. More specifically, what are pros and cons of various systems, and how does one choose the right one for them? In this episode, I sit with Steve to chat about a martial arts journey, what we believe are some advantages and disadvantages to various systems, and hopefully provide you with some tools for better decision making in your training journey. Here's episode 34 discussing martial arts and self-defense training. Steven.
Here we are.
I don't know. Now I feel like
it's weird.
So this is the thing, right? We're trying to fix our Wi-Fi issues. So we actually decided, all right, we're going to do it in the office. We'll see how this
Neutral
works.
ground.
Better Wi-Fi. So hopefully this works. But we're going to have to reset this because I can't have you next to me and now look at you and look at the camera.
Right. It's weird.
I can look at me.
I'm looking at you. Yeah. I'm looking at you this way.
Here's to me looking at you.
And you looking at me. Wait, that's the same thing.
Yeah, it's all good. So I figured today, actually this past week, that our podcast came up in a conversation I had. I was taking a class in Pennsylvania, and when I was telling a little bit what I do, and then the podcast came out because the instructor of the class was a guest on our podcast. Tonali Brando was a guest in the past when we just first started, and he likes pushing our podcast, which I truly appreciate. And people were asking me about what I do, and I told them what Silver Savage is all about, and they're like, I'm old. How do I get into martial arts self-defense? What's the best system for me to do?
Wow. And that's a good topic.
It is a good topic. It's a loaded question, right?
Very loaded.
Because I'm going to start with two premises, and then we can take it from there before we start dissecting different arts and styles. Premise number one is, regardless of the style, you're going to have good schools and bad schools, right? So
dojos and
exactly, and it really comes down to the credibility of the instructor, their experience, their background. We're going to talk about that. The second thing is, what is your goal, right? Is your goal
the biggest question?
Right? Is your goal fitness and health? Is your goal, self-defense, realistic self-defense? Or do you want to compete, right? So all those things have to factor in. So that's usually where I start a conversation, and then I'm going to start right from the get-go, and I'm going to hit the one that is the biggest out there, and the one that's the most cultish of them all, and the one that usually gives us the biggest crap, right? And that is Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
And I hate when we talk about this, right? Because when you met me, I was a BJJ fanatic, right?
And I think BJJ is great.
Yes, so I still love it, but at that point, I had trained, as you know, a plethora. That's a big word, plethora.
I can't spell it.
I can't either. I
heard
it in a movie once.
Can you say it with an Israeli accent?
Not
really.
But I have trained a plethora of martial arts, and BJJ growing up for me wasn't big. It got big when the Gracies started bringing it over, and it has its roots in Japanese jiu-jitsu. It was from then. But here's my thing, right? It became a phenom. When something gets real big, gets noticeable, then it becomes the thing, right? And especially in law enforcement, for a while, I was like, every cop has to train BJJ, and as much as I love BJJ, I couldn't disagree more. When we train although yes, it's great to learn it. Let me retract my statement.
Right.
BJJ should be a part of the curriculum, but it shouldn't be the end all be all. Right. Because as we know, when I'm on the ground, the first thing I want to do is get up. And I realize as an instructor in law enforcement, we purposely train officers to take everything to the ground,
when that is the list of safe places for us to be.
And so I started, and obviously it's the totality of the situation, right? If a suspect is non-compliant, obviously that's going to be one of the better places to control if you have multiple officers to help you. But when you're arresting someone, they're compliant, why are you going to make them go to the ground? There's other advantageous positions you can put them in while you're still on your feet.
Right. I get it. If they're compliant, though, I shouldn't be fighting them to begin with. But I hear what you're saying. And the problem with jiu-jitsu, the way I say, like you said, it became this big thing that everybody wanted to do.
Yes.
And this kind of hits on the good schools, bad schools type thing, right? Because I think BJJ is a tool in the toolbox, and we know some really good BJJ instructors, right? Yes. We had we had a few of them on our podcast. We had Paul,
Yes,
right?
Paul.
And Paul Jackson in Pennsylvania. If you guys ever, I'm gonna try to put tags to all these different podcasts now. So if you're watching the YouTube video, you can actually hear it and go listen to those.
Mainline BJJ,
right? I like, and you know what I like about Paul. Touching on that for a second, Paul did not start in BJJ. He started doing Krav, got into BJJ, and now he does both because he understands that it's different tools for different jobs.
Right. And this is why we're one of the, and I don't know about other Krav schools, but I know in our area, we're one with a dedicated ground curriculum.
Yep.
And we've infused the Krav ideology into jiu-jitsu. I hate to say jiu-jitsu because when it comes to ICS, and I say this, we don't teach you ground fighting. We teach you how to fight on the ground.
Yep.
And there is a difference to that. And again, I still love BJJ. And I guess it's okay to shout them out. I trained under the Yamasakis. I think they're a phenomenal family, and they stayed core to their core roots of the BJJ. Their father's Japanese, so he brought that tradition. He was one of the ones who brought that Japanese tradition to Brazil. So I was fortunate enough to learn under some really skilled instructors. But as it commercializes, and it started growing, then it's like everyone gets a black belt. It wasn't a matter of proving and testing yourself. It was a matter of, oh, well, he's been to class 20 times. He gets a stripe. He's been in class 10 more times. He gets
we see that in all martial arts, unfortunately, now, because it comes down to the dollars and cents and schools wanting to make money. You know what? I think this is a good opportunity to tell our audience how you and I met.
Yeah.
Because I think that rolls into this conversation, right?
Well, I'll start with, all right, so again, I've trained in everything from ninjutsu to Aikido.
Did you ever wear the black pajamas and the mask and full shorts?
Just in Halloween.
Okay.
But it was more of a karate style thing, not a,
not a ninja
smoke. And
really?
That was the first thing I asked. When do I get to learn how to disappear?
Yeah.
Yeah, he threw me.
What was the name of the movie?
American Ninja. American Ninja.
Tactical. Classic.
So anyway,
but we digress.
Yes. So I trained all these traditional martial arts, and I say traditional because there is a difference with martial arts and systems. And when you look at the history of martial arts, each one was designed for a specific reason, either to counter someone else's martial arts from another country. You look at the traditional Japanese martial arts, karate, jiu-jitsu, judo, Aikido, they were all designed for the samurai and the multiple positions they could, they would end up in, whether they fell off their horse.
And using the tools that were available there at the time. So, for example, a lot of what traditional Shotokan, Kyokushin karate do, right? Like the size and their bow staff and whatever. Those are agricultural tools that they used at the time in Okinawa and so forth.
Correct.
So, again, topic or a point that people considering martial arts need to think, if your goal is to get Zen and you want to get discipline, you want to get to the root of it because you like the history and so forth, traditional martial arts are 100% the way to go. And I also would say this, and I know we're in the middle of a story, but for kids, and not to kind of shoot our own foot in a sense, because we have a kids program, but for kids, I think there is a lot of value in the discipline that traditional martial arts give you.
The structure of the traditional martial arts, because kids need structure, right? Because if you don't remind them to breathe, they'll pass out and die.
It's entertaining when it happens.
But anyway, so I was a law practitioner. I don't want to say I drank the Kool-Aid, because jiu-jitsu is an effective martial art if used properly, right, and applied in the appropriate places. I was a very good jiu-jitsu practitioner. I still like to think I am, even though I'm old and broken. It does take a toll on your body.
And that is another point, right? We're talking about silver savages, talking about people in our age group, mid-40s, some a little older, getting into jiu-jitsu. I mean, Paul Jackson said it. He's like, top often and type quickly, because the idea is you're going to get injured. You're going to get joint issues, soft tissue issues, and you got to check your ego at the door.
And unfortunately, like other martial arts where it's a lot of blunt force stuff that you can quickly recover from. Sorry, hung up on you. Let me turn my phone. Yeah, sorry, you told me to do that earlier. Anyway, I'm human. What can I say?
One job. Yeah,
one job. Where was I? Oh yeah. So jiu-jitsu there's no striking, right? In the traditional sense of jiu-jitsu, we're not talking MMA and all that. But the injuries are joint injuries, torn ligaments and whatnot, which
and arguably worse, right? Because you think a broken bone heals pretty quickly. A torn ligament takes a while.
Yes. So there's permanent damage. I'm not answering your phone.
That's take a hint.
Yes. So I've suffered. I had my elbow elbow torn, shoulder torn doing jiu-jitsu. I had knee damage to my non-injured knee that's currently injured. So it was a big toll. Anyway, I was a big believer in jiu-jitsu. I was selected to be a defensive tactics instructor for the police department at the time. And I went to your school. It was the first time I met you, and we sent our dossier, so you already knew much about me. I didn't know anything about you, for the most part, other than that you didn't speak very good English, or at least it didn't sound like it.
I still don't, and I'm proud of it too.
And I forget what you were demonstrating something on the ground.
Well, third day of the class, right? We go on the ground. So first day is more the combatives. Second day is a lot of the self-defenses. Third day we get on the ground. And I need someone to demonstrate skills with.
That's right.
And I'm like, you know what? I saw in your questionnaire when people write prior experience, Steve puts down Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Like, oh, he knows how to be on the ground. I'm going to use him. And knowing that you do Jiu-Jitsu, like, I know exactly what he's going to try to do because he comes from that, I'm going to say sport, not because I'm trying to knock the Yamasakis, but because...
No. So, and just to your defense, I was into the sport side of it at the time. I was a traditional gi jiu-jitsu guy, and I intentionally was training for competitions.
And again, that's a big mindset thing. And for our audience that tries to pick a martial art or self-defense system, if you're going to go with the jiu-jitsu school, there are two tracks, generally speaking. I'm very much simplifying it. But generally speaking, there are two tracks you can take. You can go the sports route. If you want to compete, you want to do either pure jiu-jitsu competitions or mixed martial arts, or you can go what some people refer to as combat jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, and right? And just to throw that bone out there, the Fernando Yamasaki, the main instructor, I don't know if he's still there or not. I actually asked him. I said, I know I'm training for sport, but I'm a police officer. Can you help me adapt these techniques for law enforcement? And he did. He actually through exercises, jiu-jitsu exercises, judo exercises, and other, because we learned Muay Thai there in Capoeira. He actually prepared me for SWAT school using, obviously I was a lot younger then. So, but I had to tell him, I need you to remove my mindset from that sports side and help me adapt it. So,
and we're going to talk about the mindset saying, because it's something we used to do with our instructors. I don't know if you remember when it came to competitions, but so we need to teach ground skills. And I said, okay, Steve, do you mind demonstrating with me? And I think in this specific, I was on the back, you were in my guard, and I knew you're going to try to do your jiu-jitsu things, and I immediately reverted to hammer fist.
Punching you in the face.
And, most people will back away. I give you a lot of credit. You did not. You got a big smile on your face, and you started hammer fisting back. So I think it became a feast fest.
Yes, it was pretty bad, actually, because the whole class was staring at us.
By the time we stopped,
nobody wanted to be my partner for the rest of the class.
I think the one guy actually said, "What the fuck was that?"
Yeah.
And you often refer to it in a lot of that saying, it's like love at first punch.
Love at first punch.
But from our system standpoint, right? Because I came from the Krav Maga world, and we're going to talk about that in a minute. But Krav Maga traditionally does not have a ground curriculum. And one thing that we did when you started training with us, because you came later on. I think a couple of weeks later, we did a grand opening of our school.
Yes.
And you came over, and I remember you telling me, I have to call my wife. And she said, you're going to join, aren't you? And
I remember what I told her too. I said, I found my home.
And look at you now. You've been with us 15 years.
Over 15 years.
But you started training with us. And one of the first things we did is, because I'm big on evolving, learning, growing. You still teach me ground skills all the time. But one of the things we did is, let's take your jiu-jitsu knowledge and put in a Krav Maga context. And we actually built a dedicated Krav Maga curriculum for fighting on the ground. And I think that's been very popular with our students because it gave them that skill set and that tool. If the fight does go to the ground, I don't find myself like a fish out of water with no skills or no tools. I have stuff I can do, because we actually have a curriculum, but still with our mindset, get up, disengage. I'm not looking for a tap. I'm not looking for points.
Right.
I want to win the fight.
Right.
So that's good. So let's talk about Krav for a second. So my background is Krav. My background is actually not very much like you. I grew up, I started by doing Shotokan karate, did all the katas and everything. Then I started training with a guy named Gadi Skornik and his son Guy Skornik, which are very much regarded with the Hanover family as the founders of Israeli martial arts, right? They're kind of like the two big lineages. in Israel for martial arts. Gadis Kornik was a judoka by trade. Interestingly enough, I was at the Holocaust Museum today with my daughter on a field trip, and Gadis Kornik, being French, his family hid him during the Holocaust, so he doesn't get taken by the Nazis. He grew up not knowing that he was Jewish, and a scout found him, saw that he had talent for judo, and made him a judoka. I think he got at the 8 days old, Jewish boys get circumcised. At age 60 or 70, he decided he never had that done.
Oh wow, that's hardcore.
Yep. He also left his family for about, I don't know, 7 years and went to Japan to train at the Kodokan. But anyways, he developed a hybrid system. He came from judo, but he was stopped by the Israeli military and some of the security forces to develop self-defense system. Took boxing. He's the one that gave Emil Lichtenfeld, the guy that started Krav Maga. He's the one that gave him his black belt. He gave Emil his black belt. So I grew up under him, which was still, we wore gis, we wore belts, so still traditional at heart, a mixture of karate, judo, and some boxing. And then I got in the military. And in the military, I got exposed to aggression, Krav Maga, and then going for an instructor certification process and so forth, got more into that. So in America, I teach Krav Maga, but I got to be careful when I say Krav Maga. And for the longest time, we didn't call our system Krav Maga. We just recently started referring to it like that again. Because Krav Maga in America, unfortunately, is not what Krav Maga was meant to be. We mentioned McDojos. There are a few Krav Maga organizations in America. Some are legit. Some are not so much. Some were brought in the 80s and never evolved.
Mm-hmm. One of the reasons why I left a former Krav organization.
Yep, we're not going to name.
Nope.
But certainly when we talk about vetting the instructors, we're going to talk about in a second. You want to look at the background of the school and the background of the instructors and so forth. So that's where I came from, right? And now I have a Krav school or an Israeli Combat System school, ICS. When you hear us say ICS, that's what we refer to, Israeli Combat System. And I met you, and we let our curriculum evolve. We actually develop skills in-house that are now taught in Israel.
Yes.
Which we feel very fortunate and lucky and honored to be able to do. And just because things in America are not like they are in Israel, right? One specific pistol disarm was directly a response, actually a ground skill for our correctional team. And they came to us and said, BK, what do we do? Like, we don't have the answer, not from Jiu-Jitsu, not from Krav. What do we do? And we got together, you and I, and
beat the living crap out of each other over and over again.
And we came up with a solution, didn't we? And now that solution is taught in Israel by other instructors, and we feel pretty good about that.
Yeah, and just to add to what you're saying, because, validations and stuff like that, one thing that I was super proud of, not just, we learn from each other, but learning under, getting my belts under ICS. But you made me go to Israel, right? And I had the honor and privileges of getting the black belt under your, instructor. So that's something you don't see often. Like, I can probably say I teach an Israeli combat system, and I was vetted in Israel,
right?
You know what I mean? And you don't see that often. It's, again, one of the reasons why I left other Krav schools when I was like, I was that guy. Anybody here served in the Israeli military, actually trained in Israel? No? Okay. You guys don't really know what you're talking about then.
Let's talk about what is Krav Maga, really, because, as you mentioned, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu came from Japan. It's more of a soft technique. It's combat-oriented in its origin, but the idea is more door manipulation-based, and ground fighting. Krav, really what they did is, at least initially, they didn't invent anything. Like, you know what? Boxers strike well. Let me take that. Judos throw well. Let's take from that. Aikido and Aikido, good job manipulation. Let me take that from that. And essentially build a curriculum around other systems, stuff that works. And Krav Maga is very much not a martial art. I gotta be very
Although Joe Rogan said it was.
Right, eco martial art, right? I'm gonna pause for a second.
What about Krav Maga? Is that any good?
Sure. Yeah.
You don't
definitely.
hear much about Krav.
Well, it's a combination. It's a self-defense system. I believe it was created for the Israeli military. But what it essentially is the best aspects of all these different martial arts, like a Jeet Kune Do, like a Jewish Jeet Kune Do. Like Bruce Lee's idea of Jeet Kune Do was like you take what's useful from whatever martial art and combine them. With Krav Maga, there's some of them, some are more striking based, some are more grappling based in terms of like what they teach in their classes, but it's essentially a combination of striking arts and grappling arts. Whether it's jiu-jitsu techniques along with karate techniques, Muay Thai techniques. So they do real martial arts. It's like you see a Krav Maga expert, like you go, oh well, that guy is a real martial artist. It's not like watching some of those kung fu people that do wacky shit. Right. You're like, I don't think that's real.
It's just noises.
You're just touching the guy in the chest, and the guy's falling down. What they're doing is real stuff.
Because I'm gonna try and put the Joe Rogan clip in there. If I remember, I need to start taking notes about stuff like that. But anyways, the point is that it's a self-defense system. It's designed around, you take 18-year-old kids that are going to the military. They have to go through this. You cannot teach them anything. So the base of my Krav was all aggression. It's like hit that bag with your rifle as hard as you can for as long as you can without giving up, because that's how you're going to win a fight, right? There's no point. And really that mindset is what we're trying to give. So we tell our students when they come to our promotion test, we call them bell tests, even though we don't have bell tests, that what I test in one of those promotion exams is heart. I assume that you know the skills. If I said that you can come and take the promotional test, is you know the skills. They're going to deteriorate during the test. So test our shortest test is like 5 hours?
Yes.
Right? When you test for equivalent of a black belt would be about 8 hours because it's cumulative, right? You're going to be fatigued after the warm-up. Your skills are not going to be perfect. What I want to see is people don't quit. They don't give up, because at the end of the day, that's what's going to win a fight.
Right.
So if you're looking for a realistic self-defense system, not sports, you can do half the skills we teach in the competition. You can strike to the groin, you can go for eyes, you can go, small joint manipulations, all those which is all the stuff we teach in Krav, right? So you can't do those. But if you're looking for a self-defense system, and honestly, to get in shape as well, because the only way we can simulate the stress that is induced in a fight, short of being in a fight, is get you physically fatigued, to simulate some of those physiological responses, right? Losing fine motor skills, hyperventilation. So we do a lot of fatigue drills, and people are getting in shape in the process.
Right.
So if you are a Silver Savage and you're looking for a system for self-defense purposes, then maybe looking for a Krav Maga school is a better way to go.
It's funny you mentioned, 18-year-olds in the military, because although it's called the McMAP, the Marine Corps Martial Arts Program, if you look at it and you look at the system itself and see every move, it's essentially Krav. Right. It's exactly the same thing, then the same
mindset is key, right?
Right.
Unfortunately, the Army
is more ground based.
Yeah, you went with jiu-jitsu.
I've been an instructor for both. I've done both, and it's all more ground oriented. And the Marine Corps is more system oriented.
A true story. So
unless it's changed, because it's been many years for me.
I'm not going to mention the unit that we got asked to come and train pre-deployment, but it's defensive tactics. It's pre-deployment. They wanted me to teach them how to deal with suicide, homicide bombers, because they were going down to Iraq or Afghanistan, and that was one of the risks. And these guys show up and they're wearing their silkies, their Ranger panties, and the t-shirt, their PT gear. They're like, "Are you gonna deploy like that?" Like, no. I'm like, "Go change, because I'm not gonna train you without the gear that you're gonna wear." So they're like, "Really?" Because I guess when they do their military combatives training, they do show up in shorts and t-shirts. So they went, they changed, they came in their battle uniform with their carriers, their vests, their helmets. And my goal was to show them how that's a hindrance, because they automatically try to take the fight to the ground. So now I'm choking the one guy with his helmet, because it's supposed to be a tearaway or breakaway. It doesn't. So he ended up being choked. Next time around, he decides to be smart, and he takes his helmet off. So I pick up the helmet and start hitting him with it. It's like, what the hell are you doing? I'm like, you took off your helmet. It's a tool. I'm going to use it. So the idea of training with your gear, training in an environment that's realistic. I don't want to be on the ground with a suicide bomber.
Right.
It's the last place I want to be.
And that was something, again, that I experienced in the police department as well when I took over the defensive tactics program. prior to that, you're showing up to DT in shorts and t-shirts. I said, no. I made every recruit. One, they had to have MMA gear. So like knee pads, elbow pads, MMA gloves, mouth guards, headgear. And we issued them a second set of duty gear specifically just for the pool and fighting.
Yeah.
And that's what they had to come to class with. They had a vest on, they had a gun belt on. And again, because thankfully I was able to gear the defensive tactics program around ICS, it was effective. And, I got, still to this day, I get compliments. Unfortunately, it's not what's being taught now. I really don't know what's being taught now.
Right.
But when I was doing it, from active officers who said, I wish I could go back through and experience that. But the officers that did get to go through it, I got that email. Hey, thank you so much for showing me this. It worked. Blah, blah, blah.
Yep. Those are the best emails to get, right? We had an instructor that worked for us and then joined the police department. And one of the very first emails, I think I still have it, was, BK, I can't thank you enough. He was on foot patrol in Baltimore City, got into an altercation. His backup was a little bit further away. At some point, I think he was fighting 2 or 3 individuals. And he said, if it wasn't for your training, nothing the Tommy at Academy would have worked. It was your training that did. We talk about the sport mindset and self-defense mindset. One thing we used to do with our instructors, we had some very talented fighters in our cadre. Very proud of them. They became career military, career law enforcement, super good people, character-wise. But when they decide to compete because they're young and they want to test themselves, and we understand that, we tell them to stop teaching. And the reason we tell them to stop teaching is because, as you mentioned, the mindset shifts, and that ends up translating to the way they teach. Right. If we teach a realistic self-defense, I cannot have an instructor teaching with a mindset of competition or sport, because that doesn't translate on the street. Plenty of stories of very known and accomplished mixed martial artists specifically that end up in a foreign country being robbed or something, get into a fight, and end up having their asses handed to them because they think sport and a fight on the street doesn't play that way.
Right. And I mean, even I've made that mistake. I mean, even recently, teaching some basic skills, punching skills, and I was reverting back more to my Muay Thai sporting days and stuff like that. I was like, oh, crap. I'm like, yeah, I mean, it wasn't a detrimental mistake, but it was the mindset again. I said, that's not necessary. Let me give you what is necessary so you can effectively and quickly strike. I'm giving you way too much. You don't need this. All right, this is to fine-tune that competition. Now my mother's calling me. What is it? Everyone wants to call me today.
In the middle of a podcast. That's why I put my mouth on.
So, but thankfully, because we instill that mindset in our students and instructors, it was easy for me to, all right. Let me correct this real quick before it gets any worse.
So if I want to talk about active vet schools and instructors, we're going to get into that in a minute. But before we do, if you had to pick like the top 3 or 4 systems, I don't want to say necessarily martial arts, right? The 4 systems for Silver Savages, people our age, right? They want to get into it. And I would assume for the majority of our guys or the people that listen to us, they're not going to competitions. If they end up doing one in the process, that's fine. But the reality is they're probably getting into it for the health benefits and fitness, and because they want to protect themselves and their loved ones. So,
I mean, obviously, right at the top, I'm going to be partial to our system.
There is a bias there, no doubt.
Absolutely. But I say that now because, one, I did this when I was young. Now I'm older, multiple back surgeries, multiple knee surgeries, and I can still basically do everything in the system. Nothing has changed. And that's why I say that. Now, if I was strictly doing, let's say, judo, for example, I could not do it. There's no way with my knee and back injuries, So definitely a system. I'll say a, combat-oriented system. So I won't sound like I'm being...
Well, that's fine. We can say Israeli combat system is the best. Yeah. But a Krav or a realistic self-defense, what other systems are there when it comes to that? I mean... There's, I guess, Spear, Tony Blauer.
Yeah, systems like that, again, that are designed to be quick, violent, and effective. Yeah. So there are a lot of proprietary systems out there, but nothing like Krav. I mean, Krav is Krav. It is what it is. After that, you start getting into traditional martial arts that can still be effective. And I, to be honest, the next one I would have said was karate, like just straight traditional, not traditional, but more Okinawan karate, because Okinawan karate is a little more combat oriented than traditional karate, which is what my kids trained.
History-wise, but funnily enough, it depends on the school you go to.
Yes,
we're going to talk about
absolutely.
that as well in a second.
Absolutely. Again, that goes back to the whole conversation of vetting the school, the history.
We're going to get there.
But I think karate is a great system, well-rounded.
Okay. Give me one more.
Now, if you just want to be healthy and not necessarily self-defense, Aikido, it's a peaceful art. You're going to get the physical fitness. You're going to get the joint manipulation, some striking, some throwing, but it's relatively less impactful on the body.
I'm glad you didn't say Tai Chi. and again,
no,
this is I do want to make this umbrella statement out there just for everybody. Any training is good training.
Yes.
Even bad training is good training. For our listeners, if you are sitting at home watching TV, going out and taking a Tai Chi class would be better than sitting home and watching TV.
And doing nothing.
So any training is good training. It will give you some health benefits. It will give you some awareness of your body, and eye coordination, that sort of stuff. You're always going to get that from any style out there. So certainly go and do anything. So I certainly agree with you on the realistic self-defense. Krav Maga is really combat system based. I'm a big fan of those. Obviously also biased, but I would say if you want the health benefits and get in the process something that could potentially be used for self-defense, that's probably the best way to go.
Right, and avoid the fluff. And I don't mean fluff in a bad way, but you go to traditional schools, you're going to have to learn katas and all this stuff, which help you learn, but it's more traditionally oriented.
It's funny because recently as in the past 2 months, I've been, if you put the cameras here, you'll see, I've been doing my katas. Mm-hmm. Only because I missed them.
Right.
It's funny. I'm 47 years old. I miss doing katas.
And we say it all the time. We put on our gis and we'll do traditional jiu-jitsu from time to time. And it feels good to put on the gi and tie our belts.
There's something about it.
Be a student again, because we want to learn. We crave that knowledge and we crave that connection to the history behind it, which is a real big thing of, a part of martial arts.
Yep.
So.
The second system I would say would probably be Muay Thai. Now, it is hard on the body. It is hard on the body.
Yes.
But it's a lot of striking. For those not familiar, a lot of kicks, knees, elbows, and punches. It is a lot of impact. So if you have knee issues or elbow issues, probably not the best system for you. But if you are healthy and you want to get in shape, it would be.
I loved training. I loved every second.
It would be strenuous. You get your heart rate up. You'll sweat. You'll get stronger. And honestly, if you get into a real self-defense fight, which ends up being a brawl, being able to kick, knee, elbows, punches, that's what it comes down to. And actually, even in Krav, in our system, we always say our kicks, our knees, our elbows, we took from Muay Thai. We did not invent them because that's what it's going to end up being.
Yeah, and actually, if you look into the roots of Muay Thai or Burmese kickboxing, which are synonymous, but they have differences, there's actually takedowns and throws and whatnot. When you get into the actual self-defense aspect of it, that take out the sport aspect and get involved in the actual martial arts of it, you will see just how diverse it is.
I think I told you one of my bucket list items, and I'm afraid to say I am getting older and it's become less and less realistic for me to do, but I'm still going to try to do it in the next few years. I want to go to Thailand to a Muay Thai camp. Yeah. I want just to get the shit beat out of me for a few weeks.
I mean, I'll come take pictures.
You'll do it. You won't be able to stand on the sideline and just take pictures.
I'll be the knight from Monty Python where I lose the leg and I'm hopping. It's just a flesh.
It's just a flesh wound. So Krav, Muay Thai, and I would say the third one, probably a Filipino-based martial art. And honestly, not something I would have thought of in the past, but having trained with people like Guy Raffaelli, their knife and stick fighting, there's a lot of similarities to Krav in the movement, in the mindset of whatever I can do with a stick, I can do with a knife, I can do with my hands. So in that sense, there's a lot more precision. So that's kind of like the drawback to me, but principle-based. Yeah. And I like principle-based stuff.
And that's another thing to mention when you say principle-based. And for those listeners who are, new to martial arts and whatnot, there's technique-based where you have to do it this way. Then there's principle-based where you have an objective. We'll give you the tools to reach that objective, and it's up to you to reach it, right? As you stay within the principles, kind of like get out in a fire, stay out on a fire, right?
Yep. If you ever get in a gun, point to your face. Those are the only two rules. Get out on a fire, Stay the fuck out on the fire. Everything else is fluff.
Yeah, if you learn the techniques, great, but those are your two main principles. Just like for our ground curriculum, I have certain principles, right? Fight into the technique, fight through the technique, fight out of the technique, and get to your feet.
And the other one is find the base, take away the base.
Find the base and violently take away the base, because you don't want people to get stuck in the technique, right? We see it with our students because some of them train jujitsu on the side traditionally, and they come to class and they get focused on the armbar, and I look at the other student, what are you waiting for? And, give them that hit to the face, and now their whole OODA loop is disrupted. So the difference between technique-based and principle-based.
Also, jiu-jitsu became obviously very popular in general with mixed martial arts and so forth. There are also, especially in our world, some very prominent names that practice jiu-jitsu, right? And people that, I'll be honest, I'm not sure to say people I look up to in the terms of what they accomplished. People like Jocko Willings, people like Tim Kennedy, former SEALs, former special operations guys here in America that are very big into jiu-jitsu, great practitioners. Probably don't think too highly of Krav Maga because of their specific background. But they know how to take those skills and put them
apply them, right? And that comes with experience.
Right, and that is my problem, right? Exactly. That comes with experience. And most of our students don't have the time to get that experience. We get recruited at the police academy. We got to get real effective real soon. I don't know about your academy, but when I taught at the academy, we had for a total of 90 hours between PT and DT, between physical fitness and defensive tactics. So you think maybe half and half, 45 hours to get someone proficient enough. And you see what police deals with these days, right? People on meth, people with weapons, fighting on the ground, fighting in cars, so the idea is I'm not teaching them effectively any jiu-jitsu skill in 45 hours.
So, it's funny you mentioned that because I had similar restraints when I taught. But because of what Krav is or what ICS is, I was able to turn PT into DT, so it wasn't just wall balls, you're doing 10 push-ups, hitting the bag 50 times, you're doing 10 wall balls and getting out of a choke. And so I was thankfully, because I had the creativity, and unfortunately, this goes back to the instructors, right? Instructors' motivation to teach properly. I had that. Not everyone did, because again, I don't know what they do now, but I know it's not what we were doing before. But I was able to accomplish the goals of physical fitness and integrate the defensive tactics within that as well. So I was able to basically squeeze more time out of it. And that's the beauty of fighting systems, right? Because you can come here and you're like, you know what, I'm going to work out after class today. And you finish class and you're like, F that. I'm not working out. I got to work out.
You can do it with karate or even with jiu-jitsu. Jiu-jitsu on its own, I would say, is a different type of conditioning.
Oh, yeah. It's like lifting weights.
Yeah,
I always say that.
I like doing jiu-jitsu. It's different. You get the same feeling as you do when you're lifting weights, but it's different on the body. Yes. And that's why when we finish lifting and you say, let's do jiu-jitsu skill, on one, I'm like, oh, shit. But on the flip side, I'm like, you know what? It's not the same as lifting weight, and it's going to add to my overall benefit. So I do appreciate those. So let's talk about choosing a school or an instructor. What do we look for? I would say when talking to people, do your homework. I mean, in this day and age, it's so easy to get online, find reviews, talk to people. Go and try class. If there's ever a school that says that you cannot come and try class and makes you commit in advance, scratch that school.
That's a red flag. Yeah.
Yep. Go and try a class. Try a couple of classes. Make sure, there's a lot to be said for the vibing with the instructor. They can be the best instructor in the world, best system in the world, but if you do not connect with them, you're not going to learn. You're not going to keep coming.
Right. And we see that even like we dedicate, we're proud that all our instructors are good instructors, but even our students have their following, right? There's instructors they prefer more than the other, not because the instructor is better or worse, but like you said,
personalities.
Yeah, those personalities have to mesh a certain way. I would add too, if someone's vetting a school, talk to the students.
100%.
See what their backgrounds are, see where they come from, see how they think about the school and whatnot. Now, I think that's one thing people tend to miss, right? They just want to see the institution itself, who teaches it, what they offer, how much money they can save, or what they can get in return, right? But if you're truly into it for its benefits, talk to everyone. Why are you guys here?
And I would say also get away from hype of like any school that promises you anything. I'm going to make you a ninja in 3 weeks. We only train, special operations, blah, blah, blah. I mean, we both come from the special operations world, but I'll be honest, most of our students are Joe,
just urban professionals.
Yeah, and I love it. They come here and they train, and I will put the money on them in any fight. I mean, we have.
I mean, one of our
doctors,
our deadliest fighters, Betsy. God bless her soul. She was a librarian.
She was a librarian,
and we always joke, fight like Betsy.
Yep, that is very true. So Betsy, if you're listening to this, we want to fight like you. But vet instructors also, their background. There's a lot of people claiming things that they cannot back up. We have our certificates on the wall. We have our credentials hanging.
Yeah.
And we always refer people to find out more about us if they have. I mean, you came to Israel with me. You met my instructors. Mm-hmm. You know where we're coming from. We're not hiding anything. I met them all right. and we're not making claims we cannot support, right? Yeah. So certainly there's a lot of very good instructors out there. A lot of very good instructors. There's also a lot of not so good instructors or people that are making claims that they cannot back up. So certainly look into that. And then the system itself. I mean, proprietary systems, I have an issue with that. So we mentioned Spear by Tony Blauer. I give him a lot of credit. Came up with something good and it worked.
I've done some Spear stuff.
But this is the exception to the rule. I mean, a lot of people that say, I invented this system and this is mine and nobody else has this. I would be very careful with those. Sound systems have been around for years, decades, centuries. Because there's something to them. Don't go after the latest hype just because somebody said they invented it and they found the holy grail.
Right, and not only that, you want to see if you're looking at schools, how much is your instructor developing themselves? You know what I mean too. That's one of your peeves, right? Like everyone here has to continuously develop themselves, whether it's physical fitness, continually training martial arts, even outside of here, right? Just gaining new skills and developing yourself. You see a lot of these schools, and not necessarily even just McDojos, they just get caught up in the grind. They don't develop themselves. They're teaching the same skills over and over and over again.
Let's see. Let's just copy it for the past month. What did we do to develop ourselves? I mean, aside from we lift every day together, we do jiu-jitsu together. You teach the rest of our instructors new skills. We implemented instructors training where I teach new skills. Mm-hmm. We had Gary Fairley come from Israel and teach a 2-day instructor course. Mm-hmm. I went to Pennsylvania for 2 days. It wasn't self-defense related, but
still development.
Still development of instructors. We always encourage people to grow and learn.
And I mean, we're doing it for other schools. Like, I always pronounce their name wrong. Down in Manassas, Dregner.
Yep.
So which is a Viking.
Greg Mills, if you're listening to this, here's a shout out to you. So if you're in the Manassas area.
He's a prime example. And again, I'm not getting anything out of Dregner martial art, Krav. Greg is a phenomenal guy. We met him through the Krav family. But he's a prime example of an instructor who goes out and continuously develops himself.
Yep. He came and trained here a lot. He goes into Krav camp with Ernie Kirk a lot.
Yep.
He travels all over. He got his certifications in California. Mm-hmm. So he certainly stays. And I just saw him post something about having some other organizations going and teach.
A knife fighting skill or something like that.
Yep. So he certainly keeps.
And that's what you want to see, Right. That's what you want to see in your instructors.
So, and you as the consumer should ask those questions. You should go and say, do your instructors do any continuing education? Do you bring other instructors in? Do you send your instructors out? Whatever it is, you are 100% correct in that sense, and I think that's super important.
Absolutely. That's key. It's one of the reasons why I fell in love with you and the system when I first met.
Fell in love with me?
Yeah, you knew that. It was love at first punch. I'm actually your best wife out of all of them.
You've certainly outlasted all of them.
Sorry, Tyler. I love you, but I was here before you, and I'll be here after you. But
don't say that.
Well, I mean that's just the same.
But
so
Tyler's going to be here forever. But
that's true. We're probably going to both.
You're always going to be forever plus 15.
Yes, plus 15. Anyway, she's going to outlive both of us anyway. So
100%.
But that being said, it's one of the reasons why when I met the original crew, Bear and Sai and all these guys, they had such a diverse background. They train different martial arts. And I was like, man, I've arrived, So that's what people definitely should look for. Don't get caught up in the hype. Don't get caught up And don't get caught up in the instructor background. We've talked about this before, right?
Yeah, they don't have to be special operations.
Right.
They got to be good instructors. They got to know their stuff. They got to connect with you on a personal level, right? Not all special operations guys are good instructors. Not all instructors have real life experience either.
Right.
So you want to find a balance between the two.
Absolutely. And again, that was one of the reasons why I left the previous CROB institution that I was training at. And I'll name the specific incident, right? It was supposed to be a law enforcement only seminar. We were doing weapon disarms, and he takes the weapon away multiple times, specifically a shotgun. And the whole time, the muzzle of this weapon is crossing his body. And I'm like, excuse me, are you not concerned about that weapon going off and hitting you? And you're right in front of the muzzle. And I kid you not, cross my heart and hope to die, stick a needle in my eye. He said, muzzle awareness is overrated. And I looked at him, and I didn't really dive into his background or anything. I just trusted the institution because, again, they capitalized on the name, the symbols, and you know what I'm talking about. But I said I want to cancel my membership after that. I left.
And again, not to badmouth an organization, we're not going to name them, but two things. So first of all, our principles are get out on the fire, stand out of the line of fire, because muzzle awareness is key when you're dealing with a firearm.
You think?
And the head of the system was giving a seminar at that same school, and I happened to know because I was affiliated with that,
Same
organization.
Same one.
Ended up shooting his own thumb off with a blank out of a training gun because muzzle awareness was overrated. So,
unbelievable.
Certainly vet your instructors in your school. But I would summarize by saying if you're looking for, something that is hip, you're going to get in shape, maybe some competitions, but keeping in context the realistic, BJJ is great.
Yes, absolutely.
Muay Thai is great.
Yep.
Again, know your limitations. If you have joint issues, be aware of that. If you want just a straight self-defense system and get in shape, I would say find a good Krav Maga or Israeli combat system by you. If you ever have issues vetting an instructor or a school, feel free to shoot us a message. I'll be more than happy to assist.
If you're part of the Silver Savage family, let us know. We're here to help all the Silver Savages.
It's a small community. We know each other. Boxing is another good one, especially for Silver Savages.
Boxing. I wish I took traditional boxing courses. It's a phenomenal fitness and fighting style. It goes, pugiling or pugilists go way back and still taught to the military today. The Marine Corps, the Naval Academy. Boxing is a core staple in their self-defense.
And actually, the reason I stopped teaching academy, and you know this, is the data told us they're not allowed to box anymore. Like, are you going to teach a recruit to take a punch if they can box? So boxing is great. And honestly, you can go through boxing and learn that forever and with no injuries. If you have a good partner, a good sparring partner, if you work on a bag, so you're going to learn the skills, you're going to get in shape. There are no kicks. There is no ground techniques. So just be aware of that. Those are the limitations. There's just going to be situations that you won't have the solution for. Weapons, chokes, and stuff like that. You know how to strike, and you got to be very good at it, but that is pretty much all there is to it. If you just want the history of it, you want the tradition, you will get in shape in the process. Not as much as some of the other ones. Traditional martial arts still work.
Absolutely. Like I said, Aikido and all those.
Yep.
Very traditional. You're wearing some serious pajamas in class.
Yeah, I would not use Steven Seagal as an example anymore. I used to love Steven Seagal. Unfortunately, it's not the poster board that he used to be.
No, he's not. But if you have a lot of ailments that limit you, it's a peaceful art. It's very, what's the word I'm looking for?
Flow.
Yeah, it's just very peaceful.
I don't know if that's what you were looking for, but
no. But it's designed to be peaceful, on the body, on the mind.
Yep. And the idea with Aikido is you use that opponent's force against you, so you continue to move it. It's all very circular, very flow, right? And there's a lot of precision. I'm sure it works to some people, but I don't know that we'll count on that as a realistic.
No, again, when you talk about tradition, it's one of the many Japanese martial arts. Even the position in your hands.
Is it Japanese or is it Korean?
I believe it's Japanese because I know that it's called the sword hand. The way you hold your hands, and the idea was if you were swordless, if you lost your sword, and you're fighting an opponent with a sword or a bow or something like that. So I know it has Japanese roots. I don't know specifically the whole history of it.
I don't know either, so I'm not gonna.
Yeah, so it has.
It's either Korean or Japanese.
I mean,
it's certainly not Chinese.
No, they got kung fu.
They got kung fu and Chinese boxing. And by the way, those are good systems. He worked for Bruce Lee.
Yes,
so
he invented his own.
He did. Jeet Kune Do.
Jeet Kune Do, yeah.
Jeet Kune Do, which is great. Also, he took, and I gave it to Bruce Lee. He took a traditional martial arts. He's like, let's make it more applicable for the real world.
Yes, he did. And there's a lot of Jeet Kune Do practitioners out there that are.
There's a lot of Jeet Kune Do in Krav Maga.
Yes, it's
the way we punch, the vertical fist.
Yes, the vertical fist. So yeah, but kung fu, pretty cool.
Yep.
Especially if you are in one of those communist schools where you're forced to like train 18 hours a day and eat rice and drink water.
You know what? I know it's a bad thing, but I kind of.
So I just saw a documentary on it, and I honestly, I guess this kid was doing bad in school, so the family sent him there. But man, he was awesome, and he got the discipline, the structure, the routine. I would love to go send my kids to a school where they're going to learn reading, writing, and arithmetic, but major in a self-defense and martial art. And again, I'm not promoting communism or anything like that. They have pride, not just pride in themselves and their martial art, but a national pride. You know what I mean? So kind of
my wheels are turning right now. I have some ideas. I'll talk to you offline.
Oh boy. Yes.
So let's finish with this. If you had one martial artist that you could meet, have a drink with, maybe dinner, chit chat. Who's that?
Chuck Norris.
I knew you would say Chuck Norris.
Chuck Norris, baby. Chuck
Norris is the man.
Yes.
He doesn't do push-ups. He pushes the earth.
Down.
Pushes the earth down.
It would have to be Chuck. I mean, we met his doppelganger once, but again, I know he's a bit of a celebrity, but he was a true martial artist as well.
Yeah, he was. And there's a few of them out there. I mean, Steven Seagal, we make fun of him now, but
he's a very good Aikido practitioner.
He's very good Aikido. Jean-Claude Van Damme,
French kickboxer.
Yeah, Jean-Claude Van Damme won the full contact.
What's his name? The Muay Thai guy.
The one in Umbach.
Umbach, and he was in 22 Miles.
Yeah, I forgot his name.
I can't remember.
Jet Li.
Jet Li, yes, and Jackie Chan.
Jackie Chan is the man.
Did all his own stunts.
And he's old.
Yeah, but true martial artists who happened to go into acting, but kept to their roots and tradition, which was awesome because it made the movie so much better.
Yep.
Oh, Tony Jaa.
Yep.
Yep. Okay, I knew it was going to come to me. That's that Silver Savage in you, right? It takes a second for those wheels to turn.
Yeah, my wheels are still turning.
Yeah, no kidding.
Awesome. Well, if anybody ever has questions about self-defense and martial arts and you want to run it by us, we've been around the block a few times. We tried most of them. Certainly taught a few of them. We'll be more than happy to assist.
Yep, we have broken and been broken.
And I hope the Wi-Fi worked better this time and it's recorded better.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
At the very least, it was a good conversation.
Yeah, it didn't look like we were having seizures during the conversation.
Steven, thank you for your time.
Absolutely.
Have a good weekend, man.
Yep.
We hope you enjoyed this latest episode. Please go ahead, like our podcast and subscribe. Check out our YouTube channel and follow us on social media channels.